And unfortunately, like hardcore doesn't keep the lights on, or
Yeah,
keep the
definitely.
payments on your car for 5 people. So, and we all were kind of like moving into that phase when we started the band. We were either
Okay.
going to graduate school, finishing up college, already started like our like this is my career. This is
Careers.
like
Yeah.
my job that I'm going to try to do for 20 years and retire on, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Hey, what's up, Danny?
Hey, how's it going?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing very well myself. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, I'm Adam, and this is about you, your journey in music, and we'll talk about the new album.
All right, cool. I'm into it.
Sweet. Bands from Long Island. Are you originally from New York?
Yeah, lived here my whole life.
In Long Island, born and raised in Long
Yeah,
Island.
yeah, on Long Island.
Wow. What was that like?
Um, it's just suburban sprawl. you know, I'm 41, 41. Yeah, 41, something like that. So there's like a lot of like riding bikes and knocking on your friends' doors and sports in the streets, stuff like that.
Sure. I grew up in the suburbs in San Diego, and I'm 38,
Yeah.
so it's similar vibes. That's
And imagine,
cool.
yeah.
Yeah. Did you come from a musical household?
Yeah, my dad was a guitar player in high school and stuff, and was just really into a lot of music in general, and kind of stayed like current with like 80s metal and like hair metal and popular like rock music and stuff at the time. So he got me into a lot of stuff.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool that
Yeah.
he's into metal too.
Yeah, it was like Motley Crue and Def Leppard and Guns N' Roses. It was all stuff that like he was into, that he was like showing me when I was like 7 and 8 years old.
That's awesome. Did you start off on guitar? I know
No,
you played
no.
drums, right? But
Yeah, drums is the only thing I know how to do. I
oh,
wish I
okay.
knew
Well,
how
I
to
wasn't sure
play
because
guitar.
dad being a guitar player, I wasn't sure if he gravitated toward that early because sometimes the drummer can play everything in the band.
Oh yeah, I know. I wish I was one of those drummers, let me tell you. But no, I was just I started playing drums in school band in 3rd grade. I kind of like leaned that way, and I guess because he saw musically I was leaning that way. It was just like a thing that came up. It was like, all right, Dan's gonna play the drums, and then that was it. I never felt like pressured to learn to play the guitar though, even though he was a guitar player.
Oh, that's cool. Did he jam with you? Because I'm trying to get my kid to play drums. My 7-year-old.
Yeah.
We got him an electric kit a couple of years ago actually now, and so he can play some just standard like beats.
Mhm.
So and that was always the hardest person to find was the drummer. They have the pick of the litter in any band.
Yeah, there's a thing, if you're a drummer on Long Island, you're in your 4th band looking for a 5th.
It's so true.
Or
I think that's anywhere, right?
yeah, or if you want to give a drummer a heart attack, just text him, hey, are you almost here? We're going on soon. And just watch him melt down trying to figure out which band is getting he's getting a text message from right
Oh,
now.
that's hilarious.
But yeah, I did jam with my dad a little bit when I was first learning how to get like the coordination down for the drum set. Because he's like he's like a big 70s rock, classic rock guy, and he's a landscaper contractor, so like I would do contractor work and landscaping work with him. So like it was just like classic rock all day. So that's like all that's burned into my head. So we would just jam on like classic rock songs while I learned how to get the coordination down.
That's awesome. He's like, here's some AC/DC.
Yeah, baby steps, baby steps.
Yeah. That's cool, man. That's really cool. So, I mean, 3rd grade, you started in the school band. They had drums in the school band, or what, like snare drum or just percussion, or
Yeah, it was percussion. It wasn't like a jazz band or anything like that. It was just more like arrangements of like standards and classical music, stuff like that, like easy stuff for kids to play.
Mhm.
And then like I did that. I like did good in elementary school band, and then middle school band. They like I don't know if it was just like a more difficult spread of kids that there were or what, but they were just giving me like shitty parts, like
Oh.
woodblock and cowbell, tambourine and stuff like that. And I wanted to do like bass drum and snare drum. So
Mhm.
I never really like got into practicing for that. And then because of that, I flunked out of school band in 6th grade.
Oh, so you never continued with it after that?
No, not after that. And then like I guess this was where my dad being a musician helped. He was just like, do you still want to play drums? It was like, yeah, it's fun. They just didn't give me the parts that I like doing.
Mhm.
And when I was like you know, like a much younger kid, I was always like the hitting the couch cushions and pots and pans with spoons, you know, when MTV was on. So
Mhm.
you know, I think he knew that I was like kind of going that way anyway. So he was just like, if you work on my landscaping truck, well, you know, at the end of the summer we could get a drum set maybe. And that was it. I worked on the truck, got a drum set, and then I was in my first band in 7th grade after that.
Wow. Okay. So I mean, it's just such a different world, right? When you get the drum kit
Yeah,
versus the single snare, whatever cymbals or whatever.
right.
Were you the type of person that was just at home, just drums all day after you got home from school?
That was pretty much it. And big thanks to my parents for putting up with me making a whole lot of terrible noise in the basement for years and years and years and years. But yeah, I would just go down and I just play and play and play and play and play. And I was like, when I was much younger, I was much into very into like the big drum sets, you know, like the big, you know, extravagant ones from like leftover from the 70s and 80s that I would see on TV. So like I would just buy like cheap drum parts, like extra bass drums and toms to just try to have a
Just
big
a
a big
big
kit.
kit.
Yeah,
That's
yeah. It didn't
funny.
have to sound good, but it was just like, oh, and I have 4 toms and 2 floor toms and an extra snare drum. And I just wanted to like have one of those big Motley Crue sets, you know?
That's funny. Did you like how are you practicing? Did you just put headphones on and play along to some of your favorite songs or like because that's where I'm at now with my son. We have a drum teacher, but
Mhm.
I don't he's not into like learning how to read the music as much. I think he just wants to know how to play stuff. Like, is that how did you learn when it came to actually playing the full kit? Just out of
It
my own
was
selfish curiosity.
Yeah, no, it's a very good question. It was like trial by fire, like throw you off a cliff and see if you could fly. I had
Okay.
like a basic idea because you always want to start with like pad work and with someone who's just learning, getting the feel of your hands hitting the sticks and certain patterns and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So it was a great way to start. That was what I was doing in school band in, you know, elementary school and stuff like that, was kind of like building that foundation. And then with the kit, I just like I sat down and just I guess just from watching so much music television, because like MTV at that point, you know, was much
Yeah.
different than it is now. It was just videos all day, and I was just
Right.
fascinated by live music. So like, and you know, watching the drummers, I kind of just could just figure it out, I guess. And it took a couple of months for me to get like the body mechanics down, you know, and just willing myself to do it, kind of
Mhm.
thing. But yeah, just getting used to playing with sticks and where the balance is in them and stuff like that. That's always like the best like first step.
That's awesome. And you said 7th grade you started your first band or joined your first
Yeah,
band?
yeah. Me, one of the kids from my class, and another one of his friends that lived down the road from me. We would just jam out to songs.
Were you just playing what cover songs?
Yeah. We could play like 20 Beatles songs and like
Wow.
the Nirvana discography. Um, that was like what we jammed out on all the time, and it was just play songs for as long as we could until, you know, my dad came home from work or someone else had to go home for dinner, and then, you know, we do that a couple of times a week. We In the summer we'd play in the backyard. We had the cops called on us a couple times from angry neighbors from when we'd play outside too much, but you know, you just did it wherever you could. And again, my parents were like totally cool with like us having band practice at the house. I know that's like the first biggest hurdle when you're young and
Yeah,
starting a
where can
band
we
is,
play?
yeah, nowhere to play because no one wants all that noise. But you know, luckily my parents were very understanding and saw this was something that I was like interested in with my friends. And it was like a positive thing that I was doing too.
Mhm. That's awesome. So how long did this band stay together? The one from 7th grade?
Maybe like a year,
Did you
year
make it
and a
into high
half.
school or was it a different band in high school?
No, I didn't really start playing in bands again until like my senior year of high school. In between that, I would just like jam. I'd play with my so my brother played used to play trombone in like a ska band when he was younger. He's younger than me, my brother.
Mhm.
But some of his friends would play like guitar or bass, and then he started to learn to play guitar from my dad. So I would jam with like my brother and a bunch of our mutual friends. We were all on the fencing team together.
Oh,
And
wow, that's
yeah,
awesome
me,
sport.
yeah,
Your
yeah.
school had some badass stuff. I mean, 3rd grade, you can play drums, you can fence in high school, like, I didn't
Yeah.
get any of that.
There wasn't really like a lot of schools that had it. in our area. And whenever I say that I was a fencer, it's either like I either get, oh my God, me too, I didn't think anyone else was a fencer, or how do you even have that sport? I've never heard of it before. You know,
Yeah.
it's one of the two. But we were all like friends from the fencing team. My brother's like 3 years younger than me, so we were in high school for like a year together. And so we would just jam, you know, Incubus songs in the basement, because that was like my brother's favorite band. So he was like learning all the Incubus songs, and you know, other like early 2000s like pop songs we play. And
Hmm.
so I was just doing that a lot at the time. And then senior year of high school, I was in a band that started playing like metal songs, and I think we wrote like 2 originals, you know.
Is that what? Yeah, I was gonna ask, how do you kind of get into then what you're doing now, which is way heavier than in an Incubus or
Yeah,
or a Beatles, or you know what I mean?
um, I mean, I was always into like heavier, aggressive music. Nirvana was the thing that blew the gates wide open for me.
Hmm.
Because before then, I guess like the heaviest thing would be like a Guns N' Roses, but in it's heavy of a different caliber. You know,
Right.
that's more like rockin' heavy, but this was just like, you know, kick someone in the chest through a door heavy. You know, like it was a different
Sure.
feeling of the heavy. You know, so I got really, really into Nirvana, and like slam dancing and moshing and headbanging. It's like anything that has this, I want to do it. You know,
Yeah.
like give me more of this. And I got into Rage Against the Machine. And then I got into like in middle school, like when I wasn't really like, well, no, early high school when I wasn't really in bands, I was into like new metal.
Hmm.
When that was coming out, because that was like again the tail end of MTV, like all the stuff, like the TRL stuff.
Yeah.
um and that was just like easy and accessible. And then you know, I was just like, I had always been into like Pantera and Slayer and Sepultura, like the older like
Oh
big metal
yeah.
bands. um
Pantera is still, I think, one of the greatest bands ever.
oh yeah, yeah, it's like it's the source code on heavy riffs, you know,
Oh
like
yeah. In the
the
drums, I mean,
yeah.
man.
Yeah, the river from which all else flows, man. I swear to God. And like
Yeah.
Vinnie Paul, like when he wasn't playing incredibly crazy patterns, it was just a simple 4 on the floor, you know, with like a bell, you know, and a snare on 2 and 4. And
Yeah.
something with that, with like a good chug, like just a little bit behind the beat, is just so heavy.
It was
And
so good.
yeah, man, he was like that really like spoke to me. I think Pantera would like when I had the Columbia House scam, like, you know,
Oh
12
yeah,
CDs
you get
for a
like,
penny.
yeah. I had that same scam, dude. I got
Yeah.
Great Southern Trendkill, and I think
Yeah, same thing.
Cowboys from Hell in that same in that same kit.
Same thing, you know. And then, you know, like they should have given a 16-year-old a credit card. What do you
I
expect?
know.
So yeah, I had gotten like a lot of heavy CDs from there all at once, because it's like, oh, it's only a penny. I'm gonna like run the book on this, and
Oh
just
yeah,
got
they had
like
good
just
ones too. I think I
yeah.
got the Slayer album where he's the guy. Which one is it? He's in the has the white face. I can't think of the album name on
Oh,
that
it's like
one.
I think it was like Diabolus and Musica. Like that was the one that
Yeah.
probably was out
Yeah, it
at
was
the
the
time.
musical. Yeah. That was it.
Yeah. I think I got Decade of Aggression from that, the live album, Slayer
Oh
Live,
yeah.
because I couldn't find it at like the record store by my house, and I saw it there, so I was like, all right, let's get it.
Yeah, that's awesome. That was such a great thing. Yeah, I think I got both or at the time it was the two Rage, I guess, Rage records.
Mhm.
Because when they were doing the scam, I think Evil Empire was probably the only
Had
one.
just come out. Yeah.
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 Oh man, that was awesome. But now I guess you can get anything off a phone or on your like Spotify. But there's
Streaming,
something
yeah.
cool about being able to pick them out on the CD thing. And
Mhm,
yeah, anyway.
mhm. Yeah, it was like, what am I gonna get, you know? And then you didn't realize that they were charging the juice like $20 a month regardless, you know, and
Oh
just
yeah. You
yeah.
just thought you got 12 CDs for a penny.
Yeah, I thought it was just that one thing, and then and it's just like, mom, I owe $800 to someone, and they're
Yeah.
calling the cops on me.
Yeah. Oh, that's so funny. Okay, so that's when you started or you were listening to heavier music, but the first
Right.
band that you were in that was heavier was senior year of high school.
Yeah. We
Okay.
played a couple of Pantera songs, a couple of Metallica songs, a couple of Rage songs, and I think like 2 originals. Oh, and Deftones. We did
Oh,
My Own
cool.
Summer. And we played a gig at this like kind of like shady biker bar by our house. That was like the first show that we played, but that's where all like the local like metal bands played.
Hmm.
And I was pumped, you know, like my dad came to see us, and you know, it was just like, all right, yeah, playing a show in front of people. This is okay.
Yeah.
You know?
At that point, did you kind of know this is what you wanted to do?
I knew that I liked it. I had always thought that being able to play for like a larger audience was like next to impossible. Like it
Mhm.
was just like playing in the NFL, you know.
Right.
And I had no idea about like hardcore scene at all. It was all just like these massive arena tours, you know, like Metallica, like, you know, Pantera, like the Monsters in Moscow video, you know, like stuff like that.
Yeah.
And just like, oh wow, this is the only version of a band that exists. And then smaller bands play like, you know, the 35 person room that I just did when I was 17. There's like it's either one or the other. There was no in between. That was like what I thought at the time. And then like around that time too is when I first started going to hardcore shows and saw that, and then just realized anything was possible as far as music goes, you know.
Yeah. I mean, there's a big scene where I mean, Long Island had so many bands coming out of it in the late 90s, early 2000s. And
Mhm.
I mean, especially for that style of music and in like the emo scene. I mean, there's so much happening. Were you playing in multiple bands like after like when you graduate high school, are you going to college for drums or not? Or like what was
Um,
kind of the next step? And then obviously this band, you guys started what, 2007 or 8?
2007 is
Okay.
when we kind of like formed into like the version that it is now. Um, I was like after like just at the end of high school to the like my first couple of years in college, I was like a punk band, like a poppier punk band, not so much like a Blink 182, but kind of like Saves the Day almost.
Oh, sure.
Um and you know, like, and because I was like really into like hard, like Converge is my favorite band, so
Oh,
I was like
really?
trying,
Yeah,
yeah,
they're
I was trying to
amazing.
put like Converge stuff over like Saves the Day like guitar riffs. Like it worked out pretty good, you know. We all had our flavors in there. We did like an East Coast tour where like half the shows got canceled, so we just spent the first week just hanging out in the cities we were supposed to play at, and then did the second leg and just played all those shows up because, you know, it's like what the fuck else are we gonna do? But like
Right, right.
this is like pre-internet times, you know, almost like
Uh-huh. Well,
AOL
like
just got
early
it.
early
Yeah,
internet.
yeah. Like AOL, you know, like you could get internet all the time now instead of like 200 hours on a CD. Like it was just internet was always on, but there was no like you couldn't email a promoter from your phone. You had to print out MapQuest directions, and like hopefully
Sure.
one person in the band had a cell phone to make calls with. Otherwise, you had to hit like a payphone, you know,
Yeah.
and call the promoter on the way down. It's like, hey, we're driving to North Carolina. It's 14 hours away. Just want to make sure the show's still happening tomorrow. You know,
Yeah, I
like
was
it was,
gonna say, I bet you there's a lot of showing up and they're like, there's not a band tonight. You're like, we're supposed to
yeah,
be playing.
yeah, yeah. That's like that was like how it really was. You know, it was like it's weird to think about it because it's not that long ago, but it technology wise, it seems like we were just like using homing pigeons and carving stuff out of
Oh
stone, you
yeah,
know?
like Stone Ages for sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, well, at least you had the opportunity to tour. That must have been, I mean, especially now, obviously, you guys have been doing this for a long time.
Mhm.
And but to then was it just through bands? Like, how do you eventually meet the other guys? And you said that this version it wasn't the first band, or
No, I mean, I like between like all that early stuff in Incendiary, I try to play in as many bands as I could.
oh, but I meant
Um,
like with Incendiary, was that like, was
oh,
that your was it sounded like there was maybe a different lineup of people, and then became this one. You said around 2007. Were you guys still this Incendiary at that time?
yes. So the band had like three of the members of the original lineup moved out of state. And
Okay.
then the bass player and Brendan, the singer, wanted to keep it going. And they knew, you know, because they had been friends in the hardcore circle, Long Island hardcore circle, they knew that there was plenty of people to pick from if they wanted to keep the band going, which they did. And then I'm like, I grew up in, you know, young adulthood with Tom from Straight from the Path. He lived down the block from my parents, and we would play like roller hockey together. And
Oh wow.
yeah, yeah, I remember them when they were like 16, 17, putting out Our Oceana, and they recorded at my friend's studio. Before I even met them, he played me one of the tracks, and I was just like, God damn, this is ridiculously heavy. And then I wound up meeting
Yeah.
him like a few weeks later, and we've been friends like since like 2004, you know.
Wow.
Um, But so like he was just like, yo, Dan, who was the original bass player, was like he's looking to get a drummer for this band Incendiary. You know him through our mutual friend John. Hit him up, and see what's going on. And I did, and he was just like, yeah, oh yeah, I remember you, John's friend. You want to play drums? Sure. Sent me the demo, learned a couple of songs, had to practice, and that was pretty much it. And then it was just like me, Brian, Rob, and Brendan for like have been like the four like core members like since 2007.
Wow. And then once the band, like what was kind of the first milestone for you guys as a band? Like once you're probably playing a lot around Long Island or New York,
Mhm.
and then like what's the net what what would you say kind of the first I guess it wouldn't be like it doesn't even have to be like a big break, but just something having to be like, well, this band's really got something. Like this could do something.
Yeah, it was like in like a 2-year span, like we put out Crusade, the first full length.
Hmm.
Um and then we did like, because like from the onset with this band, we knew like we didn't have time to like tour full time or do like a 2-week tour or a 3-week tour or anything like that, go out for long stretches. So we were like, all right, let's save up like all our vacation time, like block it off with weekends, and we'll drive to Florida and back and play a bunch of shows that way. And
Hmm.
like that was my first like, all right, like because I had done longer tours with bands that were already in existence, and I was either like filling in or their drummer left, and they had me come in and do tours or whatever. So I was like kind of used to doing longer tours. Um, and this one was, but it was with bands that had already had like an established fan base.
Right.
And this was the
You're
first
just
one
filling in
from,
or whatever,
right,
touring
but
a touring musician or whatever.
exactly. And this was like the first time it was like a band that I had kind of like helped build from day one,
Hmm.
music wise, and we were going out and doing something and booking shows and going places, and like they were like, it felt like significant shows because like stuff was sticking. Like the earlier band where all the shows got canceled, like that was a band like we were having fun playing together. We were all really good friends, and like if we got paid in free beer from the bar at the end, we'd be happy. But this was
Right.
like the first band is like, oh, we have like merch and people want to buy our records, and like people have like more than 10 people know the words to this song. This is pretty, like it's interesting now, like let's like get it going. And that was like, that trip to Florida was like the first like, yeah, we're getting it going.
Wow. I did you just mentioned it too, that you guys don't actively tour very often, or has
Mhm.
that never been the case? I mean, and again, I've been burned a million times on the internet, and I just read something that said that you guys don't really actively tour all that much as a band. But
Right.
obviously you've done a bunch of festivals and you played with all these massive artists.
Mhm.
What was is that just some internet bullshit that I read, or
No, it's believe the hype. We have rarely done full tours. Like the longest we'll go out is like 5 or 6 days in a row. I think when we went to Japan, we were there for like 10 days, which is like short. I guess it's normal time, but like short by international tour standards.
sure.
We've done a couple of like, 7 or 8 day ones, but like that's about
But
as
it's
long
not
of the
like a
stretch we'll go
3
out.
months like whole United States one
Yeah,
run tour.
no, we haven't done anything like past 10 days. That's like the
What's
longest we've
the
ever gone.
what's the like, why is that, if you don't
Um,
mind me asking?
no, no, not at all. We all have like
Lives.
life. Yeah, like and unfortunately, like hardcore doesn't keep the lights on, or
Yeah,
keep the
definitely.
payments on your car for 5 people. Um, so, and we all were kind of like moving into that phase when we started the band. We were either
Okay.
like going to graduate school, finishing up college, already started like our like, this is my career, this is
Careers.
like
Yeah.
my job that I'm going to try to do for 20 years and retire on, kind of thing.
Hmm.
um so we knew we had like limited time to work with, and it was pretty much like vacation days and holidays is when
Sure.
we tried to maximize our time, that we could do stuff. And we all kind of like from the onset, we're just like, let's try to do it as much as we can, like with the time that we have available, and just try to like hit it as hard as possible in that time.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that makes total sense. I was just curious if, yeah, if there was another reason behind it, but no, that makes a whole lot of sense. And you guys have put out so much music and so many albums, and it's been what, 6 years in between. You have your
Almost, yeah.
new albums coming out in a couple of weeks, but
Hmm.
you've had a lot of time in between. Was there, was it just all focusing on this new record? Obviously, there's a pandemic in the midst there that, kind of knocks
kind of
out a couple of years
kind of
of
shifts
our life.
focus.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
for sure. Yeah, makes certain things available. I mean, it's 5 years between full length releases is about our pace.
Okay.
So like there was never like a pressure to put out another record,
Got it.
or like, oh, it's been 2 years, we have to put out new material because we're touring so much, like
Mhm.
I think because of our infrequent touring schedule, it allows us to play those songs for like a little bit longer than say a band who has a more full touring schedule.
Sure.
um because it's just like, hey, Southwest United States, this is the one time this year we're going to be here. And you get to see these songs. It's not like, oh, we're playing here in March, but we'll also be here in August and also be here in December. You
Got
know,
it. Yeah,
where
yeah.
you kind of like if you play the same set each one of those 3 times, like you might burn some people out to it. But like
Mhm.
if we're playing the same set, but it's like a year apart each time, the burnout isn't so bad.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So yeah, there's never like a real not urge, but like a need to be like, okay, now we gotta put a new record out. We're doing another, you know,
Yeah,
you know, 25 state tour. We've got to get everything out and blah blah blah.
right.
We've
Yeah, we
always
need we
had
need
that
something to talk
that
about.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So you've always kind of had that leisure to wait it out a bit. And do you feel like with this fourth album, like was it different going into this one versus the other? I'm sure it was, but like
Mhm.
with the pandemic and everything else, did that mess up anything as far as like this album went or not
Um,
really?
I would say the only thing was that it kind of like stretched out the pressing time for the records. So it
Oh,
was
okay.
more about a delay on the back end than on the front end. We had been done recording it for like almost a year before we got like a release date, for the next, coming out at the end of this month. So it was just more about like the pandemic causing logistical issues on the back end.
Mhm.
We started writing. Me and Brian first got together, like I think it was like July, after the practice spaces opened back up after the initial shutdown of everything from the pandemic.
Mhm.
Um and that was like a crazy like emotional roller coaster, because like, so beginning of pandemic, I got COVID like almost right away within the first like 2 weeks of it
Oh,
being out.
man.
Yeah, back when, it was just like, oh, you're definitely gonna die if you have this. Like when that was just because
Yeah,
nobody
you
knew
just
what
see
was going on.
ventilators and the
Yeah, yeah,
bodies.
and
It was like,
exactly, and like just like the nobody knowing anything, and it was just wild. And then 2 days later, found out that my wife was pregnant.
oh,
So
man.
that was like super intense.
Well,
So then we had,
congratulations,
oh,
but,
thank you very
I
much.
mean,
Yeah,
what a position to be in when you
yeah,
find that
man,
news out.
for sure, for sure. And then we had to like scramble to like buy a house because we were in like a single bedroom apartment. So like trying to buy a house when everyone's moving out of Manhattan and the boroughs,
Mhm.
because no one's going to work at the offices in Manhattan anymore.
Right,
And
what's the
like
point of
they're
paying that? Yeah.
exactly, and they're like, $5,000 a month rent is less than a mortgage is, a
Mhm.
mortgage is less than that, a
Right,
mortgage in the
of
suburbs is
course.
less than that apartment. So everyone's moving out, shit's going crazy. We managed to find a condo, and then having to renovate the whole thing, and then by the time, we settled in here, stuff was opening back up, the practice spaces, and it was just like I didn't know if music was gonna like come back the way it was at all.
Mhm.
Like a band like Coldplay, post pandemic, let's just say everything, you had to be sitting in a domed, section of 10 seats, to go see something at Madison Square Garden. You could go see Coldplay, you could go see, Aerosmith, you could see huge bands play at those places. The type of music that I play specifically is not for sitting down. It's climbing on people,
Right. Yeah,
doing
you gotta
karate
get
kicks.
moving.
There's that involvement between performer and fan, that line that doesn't exist, that pretty much only hardcore has, that
Mhm.
like is what draws people to it. And if you don't have that, it, like the music dies, you know
No,
so
yeah,
like
100%.
I was just like, what is the music that I am passionate about gonna look like after this? Is it worth it to even like start practicing? why? I got really existential, thinking about music in those months after the pandemic, after the lockdown and things slowly started opening up. And after that first practice, I was just like, I don't care if we never play another show again. I'm just gonna keep coming out here and keep playing, and just work on stuff, like just keep your mind right that way.
Mhm. Yeah, imagine like I haven't thought about it that way with the style of music versus like, it sucks if it came back and everyone had to be in a bubble or when they first started doing it in the car. Like you imagine
Mhm.
seeing Converge and you're in your car to drive up show.
Right,
Like it's
right,
like
yeah.
none of it makes I didn't put any of that into like really consider I didn't think about it until right now. That's just yeah, you're
Yeah,
100%
you're
correct.
not, if you love Terror, you're not gonna sit politely and watch Terror, you know?
Right.
It's
In
just
your
it's
5x5 square.
yeah, yeah, that's not how this particular style of music is meant to be
No.
consumed. So like it was just I was just like, oh man, what's gonna happen? And I'm glad everything's like kind of working out now, and it's good to be back.
Yeah, definitely. And you guys work with Will Putney on this album?
Hmm. Yep.
Was it, or is this the first record you've worked on with him?
Oh
Or
no, we
other?
did Thousand Mile Stare with him.
Oh, okay. He's great. I had him on
Oh,
my show
amazing.
talking about I think he had just put out something with for an autopsy, but
Mm,
yeah, his production resume is insane. So working with him
absolutely.
again, you guys you kind of knew what you're getting into and
Yeah, yeah, and he was like so great to work with on Thousand Mile Stare.
mhm.
I know a lot of people like aren't particularly fond of the recording process. I love it. If I could do it every day, I would.
Oh,
It's just
really? Yeah.
yeah, I just like it. It's fun. It's like I know you just push yourself to be the like to get the best version of the thing.
Mhm.
It's like the playoffs for me. Like everything else is just like practice in regular season, but recording is like this is where it counts. This is where you have to be good, you know?
Mhm.
And
And so going in with this album, obviously you guys have worked with him, you kind of know how he works.
mhm.
Was so there's probably yeah, obviously you have the trust and being able to kind of convey your ideas to him. Was like going into this album, was there a different approach or you
No, I
know
mean we approach every album pretty much in a similar fashion where like we know we have to get to like 10 songs.
right.
And so we will like just we will write to 10 songs. I know some other bands will write like 15 or 16 songs and then like pick the best 10, but we
Mhm.
just like let's just get 10 and just make those like make each one of those like the best version of those 10 songs. We don't need to do any more than that. And we're like super over prepared nerds, so we will get the songs to like between like 90 and 100% like finished,
Mhm.
I mean, at least to us. And the cool thing about working with Will is like he's totally knows our style and the way we think and the way we write and stuff like that. So it's like this time it was a lot easier for him to help us, carry it the last 5 yards, get that
Right.
last little bit in where we had because we had that previous rapport with him, we knew like, oh, okay, if we don't have like if this isn't our favorite version of this chorus, we could just like ask him like, hey, we're not a big fan of this. We were using this kind of riff as a placeholder. You got like maybe like a little different of idea how to like push this one way or the other, or we can't like decide between two different versions of a part. Like
Mm.
he'd be like the tiebreaker kind of vote, or like an objective voice in the room that didn't have like an emotional attachment to a part and just be like, yeah, cut it, that part sucks,
Yeah, yeah,
something like that.
yeah. Well, is that how you've all went have you went into all your albums that way where it's like, okay, we're just gonna write up to 10 songs and then that's gonna be it instead of showing up with, all right, we got 30 songs and then we're gonna knock this down to 12 and then potentially 10. Or
Yeah,
has it
no,
always been the way that you guys have done it?
that's always been the way we've done it. And like another thing that bands that generally can have, because again with our schedule we can't spend like a month straight in the studio or even like
Mhm.
5 days in a row. It's like a lot of
Right.
our recording was going after work, to do guitars and like blocking out weekends to do drums. So do pre-production drums one weekend and then a whole week would go by and then go back and record the drums for real. And then guitars would be like a full weekend, and then anything else they had to do, like effects or doubles, they would drive to New Jersey after work and do guitars after work, stuff like that.
Wow. Yeah, that's fascinating. And are
So
you
because
guys sorry, go ahead. I didn't want
yeah,
to cut you
so
off.
because we didn't have that kind of like those consecutive days to work in the studio like that, we had to be like super prepared with everything because we couldn't go back and do rewrites for 2 weeks. We had to
Right.
like, this had to be it here.
Yeah, so you had everything like you said, like 95% ready to go. Like, okay, these are the songs. They're gonna go like this.
Mhm.
Let's go in the studio and just hammer them out because of the way that the recording setup
Yeah,
has to be
yeah,
done.
exactly.
Very cool. And you're doing some shows though, right? To support
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah. We got a bunch. Pretty much like our whole summer is just like packed with stuff, which is
Yeah,
a lot of fun. I like seeing a busy calendar.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for doing this today, Dan. I appreciate your time.
Oh, of course, of course. I really enjoy talking about music with people. It's I like doing it with people who haven't talked with it about music before. So it's good to get like different points of view and fresh takes on stuff.
I love it, man. Well, I have one more question before I let you go. I want to
Yeah.
know if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
Ah. Play with as many different types of people and different styles of music as you can, or as afforded to you, because being able to work with different like strengths of personalities, having knowledge of different musical styles, it only benefits you. Whether it be from a performance or a writing aspect, you can come up with a fill taking from inspiration from different places, and it just gets you used to working in different scenarios, and I think that kind of experience is invaluable.
Bringing it backward.